What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Today, joined by my co-host, Collin Alcabes. He's in the airport. He's traveling, but that's not going to stop him from joining us on today's episode. We're going to be discussing Artemi Panarin once again, because even though we talk about him pretty much every couple of weeks on this channel, he continues to impress us, and the point production isn't stopping. He has scored in every single game so far this season, and he's looking like he might be on track for another Hart-caliber season, and he could be in the running by the end of the year. I know it's still a little early, but at this point, he's really making some pretty impressive strides. So I want to break down his first 12 games so far. But before we get into it, make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss any notifications. Leave your thoughts on Panarin down in the comment section below. If you're watching us on Apple or Spotify, make sure you leave us a 5-star review, and be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts at Fireside Rangers on both Instagram and X. But before we get into it, Collin, how are you doing? How's the airport? Where you're going? And how are you feeling about Panarin?
I'm good. Coming off a dub at MSG, being there in person, the chills that I get every time I'm there. It's like a home away from home. So now I'm on the road again, back to travel, and I'm flying to LSU today to visit a friend, go to the LSU Alabama game or LSU Florida game this weekend, and hopefully hoping to have a good time, but also watch some games on the road, maybe get a couple streams in on the road, and keep up with the Rangers and keep my finger on the pulse and keep everybody up to date.
Sounds good. Good luck in your travels. But more importantly, Artemi Panarin. The Rangers, um, they're going up against the Minnesota Wild tonight. Panarin is going to have to show up. The Wild did end the Rangers' 6-game win streak just a few days ago, but we continued the point streak in that shootout loss. Then the Rangers beat the Detroit Red Wings, and now we're back to play up against the Minnesota Wild. I believe this one is at home tonight. Do you know if I'm correct in that, Collin?
I also believe, but I'm not entirely sure. I haven't really gotten a chance to review the schedule in a little bit, just because between work and travel, and I've been gone for like the last 4 weekends. So
It happens. Don't take our word for it, but I think so because last game was in Minnesota. But Artemi Panarin, so far this season, in 12 games played, he has 7 goals, 13 assists for 20 points. He's a +2 rating, so not perfect, but we have seen some significant strides defensively from Panarin, kind of looking like a new player. And you just look at his last 5 games, 10 points in his last 5 games. So he's averaging 2 points a game in this most recent stretch. So I just want to start off with that first offensive stat line: 12 games played, 20 points, but he's already at 7 goals. So at this point, Panarin could make a very strong push for 40. I believe that would be the first time in his career he does so. But you look at recent years, most of Panarin's points usually come in assists because he's a playmaker. But this season under Laviolette, we're seeing a lot more shooting the puck. We're seeing a lot more goals being scored by Panarin early on. So I'm just curious to know your thoughts on the difference between Panarin's style of offense. He's still getting those assists. He's still setting people up, especially on the power play, but he's looking more confident in shooting the puck. So what kind of difference have you seen from Panarin? Do you think he could make a push for 40 goals? And how important is it that he continues to shoot the puck more and score more goals as well as get those assists?
well, I mean, every time we talk about him shooting more, I think back to obviously like Game 7 overtime game winner against the Pittsburgh Penguins. He scores the goal. He sells like there's no tomorrow, and then in the post game interview he says, maybe I got to shoot the puck a little bit more, and then he stopped shooting the puck again, and now he's back. And I mean, his shooting percentage is probably a little inflated, but he's also ripping the puck on net nonstop. He's playing a much more crash the net, like pucks on net style of game, as opposed to the typical, dancing around with it, trying to make something happen. He's still finding those lanes and getting those assists, as you mentioned. But his improved play with the shooting and in his own zone, I think, is largely attributed to his confidence, but also attributed to Laviolette and his more hands-on approach, and also the fact that he allows players to have a little bit more freedom and creativity, and they're allowed to do what they want to do without the fear of messing up. So like, he's not afraid to just throw a puck on net and see what happens and create those chances. And obviously coaches are always saying get pucks on net, but I think he's just playing with a lot more confidence and a lot more of a laissez-faire. What happens, go out there and play his game. And it's working out great for him so far. And he's really entrenched himself in the middle of this hard conversation early on in the season.
And now to continue the discussion about the offense, I just looked it up here. According to StatMuse, out of Panarin's 20 points that he scored, 10 of them have come on the power play. So half of his offensive production is on special teams. And we know that first power play unit, it's amazing. Zibanejad, Kreider, Panarin, Trocheck. usually Fox, but we're working with Gustafson right now. Still producing a lot of points. Just last game against Detroit, the power play went 2 for 3. But there's like 10 points split even, even strength and then special teams. That's not a bad stat line, but it's not ideal, I guess is the way that I want to say it. I would like to see Panarin on that second line scoring a little bit more points. He's playing with Lafreniere, who has been struggling a little bit. He started the season with Hedel, but now it's Trocheck, who last game Trocheck potted 2 goals and I believe an assist, or maybe it was just the 2 goals. But the second line has been pretty good. I personally would like to see it be better, just so Panarin's stats can be even higher, and he's not relying for half of his points to come on special teams. But do you agree with me on that? Do you think Panarin needs to be better at 5v5, or are you content with it being half and half with even strength and special teams?
I think the team as a whole needs to be better at 5-on-5. I think that's something that we've been going over, and I think that it is improving slightly as the season goes on. I mean, they scored a bunch of what is it? They scored 3 goals at 5-on-5 in the last game, which is solid. I mean, I'll take that production every night at 5-on-5. An even split is a little concerning, but at the same time, the Rangers have spent a lot of time on the power play. They're a very disciplined team that doesn't take a ton of penalties outside of the likes of Barclay Goodrow and occasionally Vincent Trocheck. But they've been able to draw a lot of calls because they have those pests who are able to get under the skin and agitate and cause other. And while they're also playing with a lead, it causes teams to make dumb mistakes and take dumb penalties from time to time. So I think the fact that we have been on the power play so often and converted as much as we have, I think that it's not like super concerning, but obviously, you'd like to see him be a little bit better at the 5-on-5. But that goes for the whole team. That's not just a one player thing, and especially because his line again. I mean, he's still trying to figure out that chemistry with Loff, and it looked good last game. I mean, that whole line looked very good. You reunited him with Vincent Trocheck, and I thought he looked really good in that elevated role again. It's good to know that we have a guy who can bounce back and forth. But that the second line has been the only line that's been extremely fluid, where it's like Heedle's out, and then Loft's new, and so you got Trocheck back, and still the new guy on the right wing, and it's like they're still trying to figure it out and get their footing. And I think that once they get some consistency with who they're playing with, and it's not a revolving door at center, because obviously switching centers in the middle of whether it's 12 games in, like it's really early on. And they really haven't even gotten to fully work with Hedel yet, and he's already out of the lineup. So I think that
Mhm.
definitely plays a role. And once we get a little continuity, a little consistency, I think that you can expect to see their stats all jump up at the 5-on-5 play.
Yeah, I mean, that second line has been changing a lot recently, especially with all the injuries. So you're right, there needs to be some sort of consistency. But the one thing that has been consistent is Panarin. And the last thing I want to touch upon is offensive abilities before we transition it over to the defense aspect of Panarin. His point streak, 12 games played, he scored a point in every single one. The longest point streak to start a season in New York Rangers history is 14. So Panarin is very close to that. He could very well extend it tonight against Minnesota once again. But you look at Panarin and this point streak. How essential is it to the team? Would the Rangers be still winning games if Panarin was a little slower or misses a game without a point? And how far do you think he's going to take this point streak? Because I remember back, I think it was 2015 or 2016, Patrick Kane on Chicago went on like a 18 or 19 point game streak or game point streak. And that got so much media coverage by the NHL. I remember I would see like a million posts every day about it. But I feel like Panarin, he's at 12, and that's like pretty impressive. It's probably like the longest in the league right now, if I had to, I'm assuming. And I haven't seen anything about it. Like no one cares about the point streak besides Rangers fans. So maybe it's good that the spotlight isn't on Panarin. The pressure's taken off of his shoulders. He can just keep doing what he's doing. But I think the way that he's playing, this point streak can keep going on for a really long time. Knock on wood, of course. I personally thought it might have came to an end against Detroit last game. So because he's lucky he got the point early on, because then after that, the Rangers took like penalty after penalty after penalty, and like he got like no ice time because of it. So stuff like that I think might hold them back when he just physically isn't on the ice. But as long as the Rangers are disciplined and that second line and our power play can just keep rolling, I think this can go places, man. So just or Panarin, the point streak, how important is it, and how far do you see it going?
Obviously, it's important. Anytime you got a player of his caliber playing above his potential, in my opinion, I mean, it's great. You want your stars to be stars. and especially when you're paying them like we're paying him, you like to see them succeed. And I think it's been great. I think it's bringing a little bit of attention, but not too much. And I think that's good. I think he doesn't need the eyes or anybody else's validation at this point. I think what he realized this offseason is he just needs to go out there, play his game, and kind of black out all that noise. And I think that's why he's doing so well. I mean, if you look at him in the post-game interviews, every time they try to goad him on about the point streak, and he doesn't even mention it. He just goes, hey, 2 points, happy to get the win, happy that we all played well, excited to do it again. So, I think he's doing all the right things, saying all the right things. I think you love to see that, especially from a guy of his caliber who's playing at his level right now. I mean, he's arguably the best player in the league currently with the stretch that he's been on. I knew he was going to continue that streak. I wore my Panarin jersey in hopes that it would continue, that I wouldn't be incorrect, and I was happy to be right. And I think that he could take this as far as he can. I don't know. I mean, it's already gone a little bit longer than I thought it was going to go, and I don't want to make like a big deal about it and like jinx it, but he looks good and he's playing just this revived style of game. So I mean, I think he holds the key to the car. He's driving. So as far as he thinks he can take it, as long as he keeps playing the way that he's playing, and the team can keep producing and helping him out, especially if we keep getting the draws or the calls on the penalties and things like that, I think that he could take this a long way. I'm not going to give an exact prediction because, like I said, I don't want to jinx it. But I think that he's got a solid chance to set that Rangers record for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible, but I want to transition over to Panarin's defensive play because you look at last season, Panarin was a ghost defensively. He put up a lot of points, sure, but that was pretty much all that he did. That really showed in the playoffs when he stopped putting up points and he just became like the most useless player on the team. But this season, Laviolette, he's come in as a new coach. He's brought something new out of Panarin. And he looks like an entire new player. He's forechecking, backchecking, playing defense. But the strange part is that his official stats don't really show it. Like we talk so high about Panarin defensively, but he only has 2 takeaways. He's blocked 0 shots. I'm looking right here. He only has 1 hit so far this season. And I kind of think he's like the defensive comparison of Kakko, where we keep talking about how Kakko looks so good offensively. He just doesn't have the points to show it, where Panarin looks really good defensively. He just doesn't have the stats to show it. So kind of break it down for me, Collin. What side of Panarin defensively has been brought out this season and like prove the stats wrong, basically? Show me how good he is.
I mean, I think the same way that we say that we can attribute Kakko's struggles with the points to puck luck, also that first line not really getting going. I think you can say the same thing with Panarin. I think in years past, you're not really seeing him back check as much, and he's been doing that. And it's like, it's not what you're seeing on paper. It's the intangibles that you're seeing off paper. It's the skating and the effort and the lack of turnovers and the increased forecheck and the takeaways and things of that nature. I think there's a lot that you don't see, like that isn't shown in the stats that you're able to see only through watching. And I think that he's taken a big leap. And I think it's noticeable when you watch the games. I mean, if you were to watch a game from last year, you'd see everybody breaking in. He's kind of lagging behind, but now he's hauling ass to get back. He's lifting sticks. He's putting on pressure from behind. He's staying on his men. I think a lot of it is just he's out there with bad defensive breakdowns. I know that he was out there a couple of times with that Schneider and Jones line 2 games ago when they had one of the worst outings for a defensive pairing of the year. I'd like to see those 2 bounce back in the Detroit game, by the way. Shout out to both of them. But I think that a lot of it can just be attributed to, wrong place, wrong time, and not really so much his fault. I don't think that it's been a breakdown on his part, just a breakdown as a whole on defensive coverages, men being left out front alone, breakaways from time to time with forced passes, things like that. Not so much, him like getting burnt and somebody cutting to the net and scoring and things like that. So, I mean, like I said, I wish the stats kind of showed a little bit more. But I think if you're watching the games, it's very noticeable, and you shouldn't rely solely on the NHL website to see who's playing good defense and who isn't, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm happy you said that because that's exactly what I was going to say. Like, on paper, it looks like Panarin isn't doing much defensively, but if you're actually watching these games, you'll see exactly what he contributes to the team and just how important he is, which kind of brings us to the main point of the episode. We're only 12 games deep, about like an eighth of the way roughly through the season, but at this point already, I can't stop thinking Panarin looks like he's having a season better than the one where he was a Hart Trophy finalist. So if he came third in voting that year, I believe it was, for the Hart Trophy, and if he's already playing at this pace, if he were able to keep it up, could he be in the running once again for the league MVP? I think at this point he's already looking like the Rangers MVP, just because Igor's taking a little step back, Fox is out, Zibanejad and Kreider are having slower starts than we wanted. So Panarin's our best player, and he contributes the most. And I know there are a lot of really good players out there in the NHL. Like Elias Pettersson is like single-handedly reviving the Vancouver Canucks. Jack Hughes had an amazing start over in New Jersey, but now he's out with a long-term injury. I believe he's week to week. So I think Panarin, he stands among the greats in the league. As I said, it is still very, very early. So I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, yeah, he's got it on lock. There's still a whole 70 games left to play. But so far, if Panarin can replicate this, there's no doubt in my mind that he should be at least a finalist for the award. But Collin, I just want to hear your thoughts on it so far. Are you seeing what I'm seeing, or do you think there are other players who might deserve it a little bit more?
I think he's definitely in the conversation. I think it's a hard pace to maintain, but I don't think it's impossible. I think you're entirely right in saying that he's gotten off to a better start than the year where he nearly won it when he had the 96 points. I believe it was his first year in New York. He's already on a better pace, which is crazy to think. But there's a lot of superstars around the league, and to be honest, I don't think that he's too worried about the individual accolades. I think after all the smack that's been talked about him the last two playoff series, because I know him and Drury had a little bit of a butting of heads in the deep run that we had against Tampa, and then I know that the whole fan base had a little bit of butting of heads, leading to him shaving his head and doing all the things that he's done to get to the level that he's at now, training harder this offseason than he usually has, I heard, and really putting his pedal to the metal. I think that he's really focused on bringing a cup to New York, and I think that he wants to add to his legacy. Obviously, we all know he's like a great player, a superstar without a doubt, world class. But I think that he wants to entrench himself in that like Hall of Fame discussion. I think that he's already probably there just because he's above a point per game in his career, which is so hard to do. But I think he's trying to get himself into that like legend status, especially as a Ranger, and bring a cup back to the streets of New York. And I think that's his main concern. I think that's also, obviously, when you look at this team, you got a potential Norris and Fox. We talked about this earlier in the season, a potential Norris and Fox, a potential Vezina and Shesterkin, and now a potential Hart with Panarin. And I said it before, Zibanejad's gotten off to a little bit of a slower start, as we've mentioned. But, I also think that he's a dark horse for the Selke. I think that he's a very good two-way forward, and I think that goes unnoticed a lot, especially with Bergeron's play the past few years. When you have guys in the conversation, at least for 3 of the 4 guaranteed so far, I think that you're always going to have a chance. I think they're all not so worried about the individual accolades as much as they are a cup. So I think that obviously it's on his radar, but not so much as it is just bringing the cup back to New York. I think that he's just kind of blocking it out, putting it to the back burner, and continuing on. And I think that's what he's got to do. And I think that if he continues to do it, he'll get both, hopefully.
Yeah, of course, both is exactly what we're looking for. A Hart Trophy would just be something nice to have, but the Stanley Cup is what we all need. And I know I don't have any specific quote pulled up, but I know Panarin has been asked about his point streak by the media a couple times, and every time he kind of like brushes it off. Like he knows it's happening, but he's not going out on the ice every game specifically looking to just extend the streak. He's out there to just play good hockey and get the Rangers a win and get us closer to that Stanley Cup. But we are still 70 games away from any potential playoff start. So we'll be sure to cover Panarin and the rest of the Rangers throughout the remainder of the season and keep you guys updated on everything you need to know regarding this potential award winner and potential Stanley Cup champions. Fingers crossed. But until then, make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss notification. Leave your thoughts down on Panarin in the comment section below. Do you think he's looking like a Hart Trophy winner, or is it too early to tell? And what improvements does he need to make in order to get there? If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, make sure you leave us a 5-star review, and be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers on both Instagram and X. That pretty much wraps up today's episode. Have a good one, and until next time,
let's go Rangers.